On the brink of bankruptcy, a company about to fall into the wrong hands is surprised by an innocent act no executive had ever foreseen. The digital clock read 7:15 a.m. when Michael Reynolds walked through the automatic doors of the Horizon building on Michigan Avenue. He adjusted his burgundy tie, a gift from his ex-wife Amanda from Better Times, and waved to Mr. Johnson, the doorman who had been following his routine for 15 years. The panoramic elevator silently rose to the 20th floor, where the headquarters of Tech America was located, a company that Michael had founded in his early 20s when the internet was beginning to revolutionize the country. "Good morning, Mr. Reynolds." The voice of Rachel, his secretary for more than a decade, carried the tone of someone who already knew that the day would be anything but good. "Did the spreadsheets arrive for today's meeting?" Michael asked without preamble, placing his leather folder on the tempered glass desk. "They're on your desk. Mr. Greg Foster has already called 3 times, and there's a red folder that the legal department sent with urgency." Michael merely nodded, heading to his spacious office. Once, that space had been his pride, the privileged view of Chicago, the exclusive designer furniture, the innovation, awards lined up on the shelf. Today, each object seemed like a silent witness to an imminent failure. He sat heavily in the executive chair and opened the financial spreadsheet. The numbers jumped out like accusations: a 67% drop in revenue in the last quarter, cancellation of 15 important corporate contracts, debts with suppliers accumulating daily interest. Tech America, which for 20 years had been a reference in technological solutions for large corporations, was now on the verge of collapse. "Come in," he responded automatically when he heard the knocks on the door. Greg Foster, the financial director, entered with that expression that Michael already knew well, that of someone bringing even worse news. "Good morning, Michael. I think you've already seen the numbers." "I have, and I imagine you have more." Greg adjusted his square-framed glasses and placed another report on the desk. "Mercantile Bank rejected our renegotiation proposal, and 2 of the investors who were interested in becoming minority partners have withdrawn." Michael breathed deeply, feeling the weight of those words compress his chest. 2 decades of work, more than 200 employees, a history of innovation that seemed solid until 3 years ago, when the combination of economic crisis, misguided strategic decisions, and the emergence of more agile competitors began to deteriorate the business. "How much time do we have in your most realistic estimate?" Greg hesitated, something rare for a man known for his analytical coldness. "Less than 3 months if we maintain the current structure. Maybe 5 if we make the staff cuts we discussed last week." Staff cuts. Those words hit Michael like a punch. More families harmed, more dreams interrupted. People like Rachel, who was raising 2 children alone. Like Mr. Augustine, the IT technician who was about to retire. Like the young people in the development department, recent graduates full of hope. "All right, we'll analyze this at the 10 o'clock meeting. I need some time alone now." When Greg left, Michael stood up and walked to the window. Chicago continued. Its frenetic rhythm down below, cars, people, buildings, everything in constant motion. How could the city continue as if nothing was happening, while his world was falling apart? The phone rang 6 times throughout the morning. Creditors, a dissatisfied client threatening legal action, a supplier collecting overdue invoices, a journalist requesting a position on the rumors of imminent bankruptcy. Michael attended to all with the diplomacy he could still muster, although each conversation was like sand slipping through his fingers. In the afternoon, after a tense meeting with the board of directors, where more cuts were suggested, Michael locked himself in his office again. That's when Rachel knocked on the door with a different expression on her face. "Mr. Reynolds, this just arrived by messenger. The delivery person said it's urgent and confidential." It was a brown envelope without much identification beyond the discreet logo of Orion Capital Partners, an international investment group. Michael opened it with curiosity, finding inside a formal investment proposal. $15 million immediate capital injection in exchange for 65% share participation and administrative control of Tech America. For a few moments, Michael felt that sensation he hadn't experienced for months. Hope. It was enough money to pay the most urgent debts, maintain jobs, and gain time to restructure the company. But something in the tone of the proposal bothered him. The urgency. The clauses that gave almost unlimited power to the new controllers. The deadline of just 48 hours for a response. Rachel, please call Marcus from legal. I want him to analyze this document urgently. While waiting, Michael did a quick search on Orion Capital. The institutional website showed a solid company, with diversified investments in technology around the world, but more detailed information was scarce. Marcus arrived half an hour later, a young and ambitious lawyer who had replaced the company's former legal director, laid off in cost-cutting measures. Mr. Reynolds, I've taken a preliminary look at the contract. It's an aggressive proposal, but considering our current situation, he left the sentence hanging. Aggressive, how? They would assume total control of strategic decisions. You would remain as CEO, but more as an institutional figure. And there are clauses about asset restructuring that need to be better clarified. Michael felt a knot in his stomach. It sounded like the end of the company as he had conceived it, but perhaps it was better than complete collapse. How much time do you need for a complete analysis? To be thorough, at least a week, but they're asking for a response in 48 hours. Do what you can by tomorrow. I'll think about it. When everyone had already left, Michael remained in his office with the contract open on the desk. Night was falling over Chicago, and the lights from other buildings began to dot the urban landscape. It was in these hours that he most felt the weight of the loneliness that accompanies great decisions. His cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Amanda. I saw a report about Tech America today. Is everything okay? Even after the divorce, she still cared. Michael didn't respond. He didn't know what to say. He was interrupted by the sound of the door slowly opening. It wasn't uncommon for the night cleaning team to start work while he was still there. Come in, he said, without taking his eyes off the papers. Sorry, sir. I didn't know anyone was still here. The voice was soft with a southern accent. I can come back later. Michael looked up. A middle-aged woman in the blue uniform of the outsourced cleaning company was holding a cart with products. By her side, partially hidden, was a girl of approximately 7 years old, with curious eyes and a colorful school backpack. No need, Ms. Lucy. Ms. Lucy. And this is my daughter, Emma. I hope there's no problem with her being here. The babysitter cancelled at the last minute, and I had no one to leave her with. Michael tried to smile, although the gesture seemed strange after an entire day of tension. No problem. Make yourselves at home. I'm just going to finish reading. Some documents. While Ms. Lucy began to clean the shelves silently, little Emma observed everything with fascination, especially the view of the illuminated city. Michael returned his attention to the contract, but the child's presence somehow seemed to alleviate a bit of the weight he felt. The desk phone rang, startling him. Who would be calling at this hour? Tech America. Michael Reynolds speaking. Psati. Voice on the other end was deep and imposing, with a slight foreign accent. Mr. Reynolds, this is Richard Keller from Orion Capital Partners. I imagine you've already received our proposal. Tomorrow I'll be in Chicago to expedite this process. I trust you are seriously considering our offer. Michael looked at the contract on the desk, at Ms. Lucy cleaning silently, at little Emma, observing the city through the window. Somehow that domestic scene amidst the corporate environment seemed a reminder that there was more at stake than just numbers and contracts. Yes, Mr. Keller, we're analyzing it, but we'll need more time for a definitive answer. Time is a luxury that your company doesn't have, Mr. Reynolds. Our terms are quite clear. 48 hours, and believe me, it's the best offer you'll receive. The call ended before Michael could respond. He stared at the phone, feeling that, despite the apparent salvation, something in that proposal could be the final blow to the company he had built with so much effort. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. Let's continue. It was still early morning when the alarm clock rang in the small two-room apartment on the east side of Chicago. Miss Lucy automatically stretched her arm to silence it, being careful not to wake Emma, who was sleeping deeply beside her in the double bed. The girl muttered and turned, hugging the worn teddy bear that had accompanied her since she was 3 years old. "It's time, my child," whispered Miss Lucy, caressing the curly hair of the little one. "Today you're coming with me again." Emma slowly opened her eyes, trying to get used to the faint light coming from the kitchen. "Are we going to the big building, Mom?" "Yes, honey. Aunt Josie can't stay with you today, but you already know the rules, right?" The girl nodded, rubbing her eyes. "Don't make noise, don't touch anything, and always stay close to you." Miss Lucy smiled, feeling that familiar tightness in her chest, a mixture of pride for her daughter's precocious maturity and sadness for having to impose such responsibilities on such a small child. Since her husband, Anthony, had suffered an accident that left him with reduced mobility, life had become a constant race against the clock and the bills. While preparing a simple coffee and separating some cookies and a small juice box for Emma to take, Miss Lucy looked at the corner of the living room where Anthony was sleeping on an adapted hospital bed. The physical therapy treatment was showing results, but slowly, very slowly. "Tony," she called softly, approaching, "we're leaving. I left your coffee ready and your medicines separated. Mrs. Zephyr said she'll stop by before lunch to help you. To the bathroom." Anthony opened his eyes, those eyes that still held the brightness of the hard-working man she had met 20 years ago in Raleigh, North Carolina. "Take care of our princess," he murmured with a hoarse voice. "And take care of yourself too, Lucy." The journey to Chicago's financial center took almost 2 hours between bus and train. Emma, already accustomed, carried in her small backpack her coloring books, some little books and an old tablet she had received second-hand, where she watched downloaded cartoons when the battery allowed. "Mom, why do we never go to work during the day in the big building?" Emma asked as she watched the city wake up through the train window. "Because during the day is when the executives are working, honey. We clean after they leave. That's how it works." Emma was silent, absorbing that explanation like someone trying to understand a complex rule of a game. "And why can't they clean their own offices themselves? Maid'S?" Lucy smiled. "Everyone has their job, Emma. Their job is to have meetings, use computers, take care of companies. My job is to leave everything clean for when they return the next day. When I grow up, I want to be an executive who works in a big building," declared Emma, with the conviction that only children possess. Miss Lucy squeezed her small hand. "You'll be whatever you want, my child. That's why studying is so important." In the basement of the Horizon building, Miss Lucy clocked in at the outsourced cleaning company. Her supervisor, Walter, a middle-aged man with a permanently tired expression, looked at Emma with disapproval. "Again with the girl, Lucy, you know it's not allowed." "The babysitter cancelled at the last minute, Walter. I promise she won't get in the way. She never has." Walter sighed. "If any of the managers complain, I can't defend you this time." "I know, thank you." In the service elevator, Emma firmly held her mother's hand, observing the floor numbers light up sequentially. The 20th floor, where Tech America was located, was the highest the elevator reached, and that always excited her. "Today are we going to clean the office of the serious man from yesterday?" asked Emma. "Yes, Mr. Reynolds' office, but he's probably already gone by this hour." He seemed sad. "Ms." Lucy looked at her daughter, surprised by the observation. Emma had always been sensitive to people's emotional states, an ability that sometimes seemed almost supernatural in such a young child. "Many important people get sad too, honey. Having money doesn't mean not having problems." When they arrived at the Tech America floor, the environment was almost completely deserted. Only some emergency lights illuminated the path between the empty cubicles and meeting rooms. Miss Lucy began her routine while Emma settled in a corner with her coloring books. At the other end of the building, Michael Reynolds still hadn't gone home. After Richard Keller's call, he had spent hours analyzing every detail of the contract, trying to understand the true implications of that agreement. At some point, exhausted, he had fallen asleep on the desk between papers and a cold cup of coffee. He was awakened by the soft sound of a children's melody. Confused, he looked around, realizing it was already past midnight. The music seemed to be coming from the hallway. He got up, adjusting his crumpled clothes, and followed the sound. In the common area of the office, he found Emma sitting in a swivel chair, watching an animated cartoon on her tablet. Miss Lucy was cleaning the nearby windows, occasionally looking at her daughter. "Good evening," said Michael, his voice hoarse from lack of use. Miss Lucy turned, startled. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were still here. Emma, lower the volume, honey." "It's all right." Michael made a reassuring gesture. "I think I ended up falling asleep at my desk. Tough day." Something in Michael's tired expression awakened compassion in Miss Lucy. She knew that look. It was the same she saw in Anthony on the days when the pain was stronger, when the frustration of not being able to work consumed him. "You work too much, sir." "Excuse the intrusion, but it's not healthy." Michael smiled weakly. "You're probably right." He looked at Emma, who was now observing him with curiosity. "Hello, little one. What's your name again?" "Emma," the girl promptly replied, without any shyness. "Are you the owner of this whole company?" "Emma, don't be indiscreet," Miss Lucy warned. "It's okay." Michael approached, sitting in a chair nearby. "Yes, I founded this company a long time ago, even before you were born. And why do you seem so sad?" The question, asked with the disconcerting frankness of children, caught Michael by surprise. For a moment, he considered giving an evasive answer, as he would to any adult, but something in the sincerity of those eyes made him respond with honesty. "Because the company is having problems that adults have when business isn't going well." Emma nodded, as if she understood perfectly. "My dad was also sad when he couldn't work anymore. But my mom always says that problems are like rain clouds. They pass sooner or later." Michael looked at Miss Lucy, who was observing the scene with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. "Your daughter is very special," he commented. "She is." "My light," Miss Lucy responded simply, returning to work. For a few minutes Michael stayed there, talking with Emma about simple things, her favorite cartoons, school, what she wanted to be when she grew up. It was strange how that unpretentious conversation with a child seemed more comforting than all the strategic meetings of the past few weeks. His cell phone vibrated in his pocket. It was a message from Richard Keller, confirming our meeting, tomorrow at 2 p.m. in your office, to finalize the details of the acquisition. Bring the signed contract. Reality weighed on his shoulders again. Michael said goodbye and returned to his office, where he spent a few more hours reviewing the contract. Something continued to bother him in the fine print of that document, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what. The next morning, after a night almost without sleep, Michael arrived early at the company. The team was already in a frenzy with the news of the possible acquisition by Orion Capital. In the marketing department, the young designers excitedly discussed the prospects. "I heard they have offices in New York and London," commented Ryan, the creative director. "Imagine the possibilities for an international career." "I don't know," pondered Patricia, social media analyst. "These acquisitions usually come with cuts. Who guarantees we won't be the first to go?" Michael passed by, them trying to appear confident, but the truth was that he shared the same doubts. In his office, he found Greg Foster and Marcus, the lawyer, already waiting for him. "So?" he asked without preamble. Marcus leafed through some notes. "I did a careful analysis. The contract is legitimate, but has some concerning clauses." "Like what?" "For example, they maintain the right to reposition strategic assets without needing approval from the current board. This could mean selling parts of the company without your consent." "And there's more," added Greg. "I did a search on other Orion Capital businesses. In the last 5 years, they acquired 7 technology companies in difficulty. Do you know how many continue to operate today?" Michael felt a knot in his stomach. "How many?" "None. They dismantled all of them, sold the intellectual property, the contracts with clients, and dismissed most of the employees." Silence fell over the room. The proposal that seemed like a lifeline was beginning to reveal itself as something very different. "But what's the alternative?" questioned Michael, verbalizing the thought that tormented everyone. "Without this injection, we won't be able to honor the payroll next month." Greg adjusted his glasses, a gesture he always made when uncomfortable. Maybe it's time to consider an organized liquidation plan. At least we could ensure that everyone receives their severance pay. Michael felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. That company was more than a business. It was his legacy, his purpose, his identity. The idea of closing it was like losing part of himself. I'm going to meet with Keller this afternoon. I want both of you to be present. When the meeting ended, Michael remained in his office, looking at a framed photo on the desk, the inauguration of Tech America 20 years ago. He, young and full of dreams, cutting the red ribbon. In the background, his original team, only 10 people at the time, all smiling, believing in the future. The intercom rang. It was Rachel. Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Richard Keller has moved up the meeting. He's already at reception. Michael took a deep breath. It was time to face what fate had in store for Tech America, whatever the outcome. Richard Keller wasn't what Michael expected. Contrary to the corporate shark image he had mentally constructed, the man who entered his office had an affable smile, well-trimmed grey hair and a perfectly fitted navy blue suit. He spoke with an accent but fluently. "Mr. Reynolds, it's a pleasure to meet you in person. I'm an admirer of what you've built here," said Keller, observing the office with genuine interest, lingering on the innovation awards displayed on the shelf. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Keller. These are Greg Foster, our financial director, and Marcus Almeida from the legal department." Keller greeted both with a nod, but his focus remained on Michael. "I imagine you've reviewed our proposal. I trust it's satisfactory for all involved." "Actually, we have some questions about certain clauses," intervened Marcus, opening a folder with colored markings. Keller's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, we're open to clarify any point. But remember, Mr. Reynolds, that this type of operation requires speed. The market doesn't wait." For the next 2 hours, they discussed the contract terms in detail. For each question, Keller had a ready answer, always coated with technical terms and market justifications. About the fate of the employees, he was evasive. Restructurings are inevitable in processes like this, but we value talent. When the meeting ended, Michael wasn't more convinced than at the beginning. Keller's explanations sounded plausible, but something in his instinct, the same instinct that had guided him in so many decisions throughout his career, sounded a silent alarm. "I'll need a few more hours to reflect, Mr. Keller." The investor consulted his wristwatch, a discreet but visibly exclusive model. "I have a flight to New York tonight. I was hoping to take the signed contract." "I understand, but a decision of this magnitude—" "Mr. Reynolds," interrupted Keller, now with poorly disguised firmness, "let's be frank, your company is sinking. Our proposal is generous considering the circumstances. If you refuse, in 3 months you'll be liquidating assets for a fraction of the value we're offering." Michael felt the blood rise to his face. "I appreciate your frankness, Mr. Keller. You'll have my answer by the end of the day, by email." When Keller left, accompanied by Greg, Marcus remained. "What do you think, Michael?" "I don't know. Part of me says it's our only way out. Another part suspects there's something more behind this rush." "I'm uncomfortable too," admitted Marcus, "but Greg is right about our financial situation. Time is running out." The afternoon advanced with Michael isolated in his office, alternating between analyses of the contract terms and research on Orion Capital. The available information was limited and contradictory. Some articles praised its ability to recover companies in difficulty. Others mentioned aggressive restructurings and asset demobilization. Around 7 p.m., when most employees had already left the office, Michael was exhausted. His head was throbbing and his vision blurred when trying to focus on the fine print of the contract. He decided he needed fresh air before making his final decision. "Rachel, I'm going down to get something to eat. I'll be back in half an hour." In the lobby of the building, he crossed paths with Ms. Lucy and Emma, who were arriving for the night shift. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds," greeted Ms. Lucy, surprised to see him at that hour. "Good evening, Miss Lucy. Good evening, Emma." The girl smiled, showing the gap of a missing baby tooth. "Are you still sad today?" Michael couldn't avoid a smile. "A bit less, perhaps. Thank you for asking." He went out into the Chicago night. Michael reflected on the innocent question from the girl. Was he really less sad, or just resigned to the inevitable end of his most precious creation? He walked a few blocks, bought a sandwich he could barely eat, and returned to the building less than 20 minutes later. The decision was already made. He would sign the contract. Not because he believed it was the best path, but because he couldn't envision a viable alternative. When he returned to the 20th floor, the environment was quiet. Only a few lights remained on, including that of his office. He passed by the empty cubicles, where during the day dozens of people worked, dreamed, built. How many of them would still be there in a month? As he approached his office, he heard a child's voice. Emma was sitting in his executive chair, playing with the desk phone, pretending to make important calls. "Good morning. This is Chief Emma of Tech America. How can I help you?" Michael stood at the door, observing the scene with a mixture of amusement and tenderness. Emma noticed him and froze with a guilty expression. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be touching your things." "It's all right," reassured Michael, entering the office. "It seems you would be a great CEO." Emma smiled, relieved. "My mum went to clean the bathroom and asked me to stay quietly here. I promise I didn't touch anything else." "Don't worry." Michael sat in the chair in front of his own desk, now occupied by the temporary little executive. "How's your day going?" "Good. At school, the teacher taught about stars. Did you know that the sun is also a star? Just that it's closer to us." The simplicity of that conversation was comforting. For a few minutes, Michael forgot the problems of the company, the Orion Capital contract, all the worries that afflicted him. Suddenly, the phone on the desk rang, startling both of them. Emma looked at the device with wide eyes. "It could be important," said Michael, making a move to answer. But driven by a childish impulse and the game she was playing moments before, Emma was quicker. She picked up the receiver and, imitating the serious voice she had heard from secretaries, announced, "Tech America, good evening." Michael was about to intervene when something in the girl's expression stopped him. Emma was listening attentively, and her face showed concentration. "Who's speaking, please?" she asked, now in a normal child's tone. On the other end of the line, Richard Keller's irritated voice answered without realizing he was talking to a child. "This is Richard Keller. Who are you? I need to speak with Michael Reynolds immediately." "My name is Emma. Michael is here, but he seemed very tired. Why do you want to talk to him so late?" There was a confused pause. Keller, probably thinking he was talking to some inexperienced secretary or Michael's assistant, responded with impatience. "Look, I don't have time for this. Just tell him I need to confirm if the contract will be signed today, as we agreed." Emma, with the natural curiosity of children, continued, "What contract? Is it something important?" Keller sighed audibly. "Look, miss, just inform him that the Orion board is eager to start the restructuring process. The buyers for the development units are already aligned, and the sooner we liquidate the redundant assets, the better." Michael, who was observing the scene paralyzed, felt a chill run down his spine. Liquidate assets? Buyers already aligned? That wasn't in any part of the contract he had analyzed. Emma, without understanding the gravity of what she was hearing, continued her innocent investigation. "But if you're going to help the company, why do you need to sell parts of it?" Keller's frustration was palpable even through the phone. "Listen, I don't know who you are, but you clearly don't understand how this business works. We're not helping anyone. We're acquiring a failing company for a fraction of its real value, recovering the investment with the sale of intellectual properties and lucrative contracts, and eliminating what doesn't serve. That's how it works. Now please, pass this call to Michael Reynolds." Michael felt his blood freeze. His suspicions were confirmed in the most unexpected way possible, through the innocent conversation of a child with a man who thought he was talking to an adult. He silently signaled for Emma to pass him the phone, but the girl, completely absorbed in her important conversation, asked one more question. "But what about the people who work there? What happens to them?" Keller, now visibly irritated and not caring who he was talking to, let slip. "The severance clauses are minimal, provided for in the basic legislation. Most will be dismissed in the first few weeks. It's the cost of doing business, dear. Now, for the last time, call Michael Reynolds to the phone." At that moment, Miss Lucy entered the office and, seeing Emma on the phone, hurried towards her daughter. "Emma, what are you doing?" "I'm sorry, sir, she shouldn't." Michael made a gesture asking for silence and, extending his hand, finally took the phone from Emma. "Keller, this is Michael." There was a brief silence on the other end. "Reynolds, who was that person?" "That doesn't matter now. What matters is that I just heard you admit plans that weren't disclosed in the contract you presented to me." Keller's voice changed to a conciliatory tone. "Michael, clearly there was a misunderstanding. We were discussing possibilities, hypothetical scenarios. Nothing is decided." "Funny, that's not what I heard. You mentioned buyers already aligned for units of the company. You mentioned liquidation of assets. This doesn't appear anywhere in the document I analyzed. They're just contingencies, alternative plans that—" "No, Keller, it's over. There will be no signature, no agreement. Tech America is not for sale to you." "You're making a colossal mistake." Keller's voice now overflowed with anger. "In 3 months, your precious company will no longer exist, and then you'll be begging for an offer that will be half of what we're offering today." Michael looked at Emma, who was observing everything with attentive eyes, and at Ms. Lucy, visibly confused and concerned. "I'd rather try to save the company my way than see it dismantled by yours. Good night, Mr. Keller." He hung up the phone and remained silent for a few seconds, processing what had just happened. Tech America was still in danger, but at least now he knew exactly what he had escaped from. "Sir, I'm sorry about Emma. I told her not to touch anything," began Ms. Lucy, mortified. Michael looked at the girl, who seemed worried about the possibility of being in trouble. Then he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He smiled genuinely. "Ms. Lucy, your daughter just did an enormous good to this company and everyone who works here. A good she can't even imagine." Emma looked at him, confused. "Was the man on the phone bad?" Michael approached and crouched to be at the girl's height. "Not exactly bad, Emma, but he wasn't being honest with me, and thanks to you, I now know that." "So, I'm not in trouble?" "Not at all," assured Michael, standing. "Though in fact I think we all need to celebrate." Miss Lucy still seemed confused. "Celebrate what, sir?" Michael looked at the contract on the desk, which now seemed like an artifact from a future that would no longer happen. "A second chance, Miss Lucy. A chance to do things the right way." As the night sky of Chicago sparkled through the window, Michael felt for the first time in months that perhaps there was a path forward. It would be difficult, require sacrifices and creativity, but at least it would be a path chosen by him, not imposed by corporate predators. And all thanks to the innocent curiosity of a child who, without knowing, had asked the questions that no adult thought to ask. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. Let's continue. The following morning dawned with a different energy at Tech America. Michael arrived early, after a night almost without sleep, but with renewed determination. In the elevator, he met Greg Foster, who looked at him curiously. "We received a rather acidic email from Orion Capital cancelling the negotiations," commented the financial director. "What happened last night?" Michael allowed himself a small smile. "I discovered we were about to sell our soul to the devil, Greg, and for a very low price. In the office, he called an emergency meeting with the board. Besides Greg, present were Marcus from legal, Kathy Roberts from the development area, and Ryan Sanders from marketing. Rachel was serving coffee, discreetly observing the seriousness on everyone's faces. Orion Capital was not our salvation." Michael began, getting straight to the point. "It was our end disguised as a rescue. I discovered yesterday that they already had buyers lined up for our most profitable business units and planned to dismiss most of the employees in the first few weeks." "How did you discover this?" asked Kathy, adjusting her colorful framed glasses. Michael hesitated for a moment, telling that a 7-year-old child had unmasked one of the largest international investors would sound, at the very least, peculiar. "Let's say it was an unexpected intervention. The important thing is that we need a plan B, and we need it fast." Greg consulted his financial spreadsheet on his tablet. "Without the Orion injection, We're back to square one. We have cash for, at most, 2 months of complete operation. And what if it's not complete operation, questioned Michael. What if we reduce to the essentials for a period? We would have to cut costs drastically, responded Greg. Reduction of physical space, renegotiation with all suppliers, suspension of non-essential projects, and possibly some reduction in the team. The room fell silent. The word reduction hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Let's look for alternatives before thinking about layoffs, affirmed Michael. Ryan, which contracts do we still have that generate consistent revenue? The marketing director quickly consulted his laptop. The management systems for the banking sector still account for 40% of our recurring revenue. And we have that artificial intelligence project for data analysis that was practically shelved. Project Aurora? Kathy visibly animated. I always believed in it, but it was considered too experimental for the market at the time. Exactly. Michael began to pace around the room, his mind working rapidly. The market has changed in the last 2 years. AI is no longer a differential, it's a necessity. And we have a practically ready product that was developed when few were betting on this technology. But we would need investment to finalize the development and launch it commercially, pondered Greg, always realistic. How much? Kathy made some quick calculations. For a viable version with a lean and focused team, maybe 2 million, much less than the 15 million that Orion offered, but enough to give us a new product with real market potential, completed Michael. Greg, if we sell the lower floor that's practically empty and move everyone to this one, how much would we free up? The financial director quickly did the math. Considering the value of the square footage in the region, about 3.5 million. But it would be an irreversible move. And if it's the difference between surviving or not, questioned Michael. Besides, with hybrid work, we no longer need so much physical space. The meeting extended for hours. Ideas emerged, were debated, discarded or refined. By noon, they had a plan outline. Sell one of the office floors, consolidate the operation, focus on finalizing Project Aurora, renegotiate terms with creditors using the new product as a guarantee of future flow, and seek strategic partnerships instead of controlling investors. It's risky, admitted Greg when they finally finished, but it's a plan. Better than handing everything over to Orion to dismantle, agreed Ryan. When the meeting ended, Michael headed to the development room where dozens of programmers worked on various projects. Normally, he just passed by there on protocol visits, but today he wanted something different. Upon entering, the conversations diminished, and everyone looked curiously at the CEO. Good morning, everyone, he began, feeling strangely nervous. I'd like to talk to you about Project Aurora. A young programmer named Fiona raised her hand. The AI system for predictive analysis. I thought it had been shelved a year ago. It was, and that was my mistake, admitted Michael, surprising everyone with his frankness. I believed the market wasn't ready, but I was wrong. And now I want to resurrect it, but I'll need the total dedication of a lean and passionate team. The buzz spread through the room. Aurora had been a project beloved by many of them, an opportunity to work with cutting-edge technology that was abruptly interrupted by decisions from above. We're facing a critical moment, continued Michael. I won't lie to you, the company's financial situation is delicate, but I believe we have the talent and vision to turn this game around. Fiona, who had been one of the main developers of Aurora, stepped forward. I'm in, Mr. Reynolds. I always believed in this project. Me too, said Luke, another programmer. In minutes, a team of 12 people had voluntarily formed, willing to dedicate extra hours to revive Aurora. The enthusiasm was palpable, something Michael hadn't seen in the company for years. Upon returning to his office, he found a voice message from an unknown number. It was Frank Thompson, an old college colleague who now ran an investment fund focused on technology companies. Michael, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Orion was negotiating with you and that something went wrong. I'm interested in talking. Call me when you can. Michael hesitated. More investors was exactly what he feared now, but Frank had a different reputation in the market. He was known for patient, long-term investments in companies with good fundamentals. Decided to return the call. The conversation was brief but promising. Frank suggested a meeting for the next day. "I'm not interested in controlling shares, Michael," he explained. "My fund seeks minority participations in companies with interesting proprietary technology. I heard about a project of yours in the AI area." Michael hung up, intrigued. How did Frank know about Aurora? The project had been kept relatively discreet. He decided to investigate this connection before the meeting. In the late afternoon, when most employees had already left, Michael remained in his office, organizing data for the meeting with Frank. The plan was taking shape, but there were still many uncertain variables. He needed to be cautious. He was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. It was Ms. Lucy, arriving for her night shift. By her side, Emma held her school backpack, looking a bit hesitant. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds," greeted Ms. Lucy. "Emma wanted to ask if you're still angry with her about yesterday's phone call." Michael smiled, getting up to approach them. "Angry? Not at all, Emma. In fact, you helped me a lot. More than you can imagine." The girl smiled, relieved. "The bad man won't buy your company anymore." "No, he won't. And that's thanks to you." Ms. Lucy seemed confused. "Sir, what exactly happened yesterday? Emma was telling me a story about an important phone call, but I didn't quite understand." Michael looked at mother and daughter, considering how much he should share. He decided on the truth. "Your daughter, Ms. Lucy, prevented me from making the biggest mistake of my life. The man who called yesterday was trying to buy Tech America with bad intentions. He planned to fire most of the employees and sell parts of the company. Emma, by answering the phone and asking innocent questions, made him reveal his true plans." Ms. Lucy's eyes widened. "My God, sir. And now?" "Now we're seeking another path. A more difficult one, perhaps, but one that preserves what we've built. Here." Emma, who was listening attentively, asked, "And are you not sad anymore?" Michael reflected for a moment. "I'm not sad anymore, Emma. I'm worried with many challenges ahead, but I'm also hopeful. It's different." Something in the simplicity of that conversation with the girl made him think about the essence of what he was trying to preserve. It wasn't just a company or jobs or a personal legacy. It was a space where people could create, innovate, contribute something meaningful. "Ms. Lucy, may I ask a favor?" "Of course, sir." "When you finish your shift today, I'd like to talk to you about something. I have an idea, and I think you can help me." The woman's confused expression was understandable. What could a CEO want with a cleaning staff member? But she agreed with a nod. That night, as the city lit up outside, Michael shared with Ms. Lucy his vision for a program he had just conceived. Different perspectives. The idea was to create a formal channel where employees at all levels, especially those usually not heard, could contribute ideas and observations about the company. If a 7-year-old child had managed to see something that all the executives and lawyers had missed, what else were they letting slip by? "You want the janitors and security guards to give opinions about the company?" asked Ms. Lucy, incredulous. "Exactly. You see things that we don't see, Ms. Lucy. You hear different conversations, perceive dynamics that go unnoticed by those immersed in meetings and reports." The idea was bold, unprecedented in traditional corporate culture, but Michael was willing to try radical approaches. Tech America needed to reinvent itself, and that meant questioning all assumptions about how a company should function. Before leaving, already past midnight, Michael received an email from Frank Thompson with more details about the fund he directed. Unlike Orion Capital, Horizon Ventures worked with patient investments, minority participations, and a focus on developing globally competitive American technologies. Attached to the email was an academic article about artificial intelligence applied to financial data analysis. One of the authors was Fiona Reed, the programmer who hours earlier had volunteered to lead the resurgence of Project Aurora. Now Michael understood the connection. Frank knew about Fiona's academic work and knew of the project's potential. For the first time in months, Michael left the office with a different feeling. The path would be difficult, full of uncertainties, but at least it was a chosen path, not an imposed one. And it had begun thanks to the innocent curiosity of a child who, without knowing, had asked the questions that no adult dared to ask. The following weeks at Tech America were like a silent revolution. The lower floor was quickly negotiated and sold, freeing up the capital necessary to boost Project Aurora and ensure the immediate survival of the company. The move to a more compact space, instead of seeming like a step backward, created an atmosphere of proximity and collaboration that had long been lost. The meeting with Frank Thompson had been productive. Unlike Richard Keller, Frank didn't arrive with a ready contract, but with genuine questions about the company's vision, the technology involved in Aurora, and the people behind the project. "We don't just invest in products or patents, Michael," he explained during lunch at a restaurant near the office. "We invest in teams, in cultures, in purposes." At the end of the meeting, Frank proposed an investment model that Michael would never have expected. $10 million in exchange for 20% of the company, but with an unusual clause: the money would be released in installments linked not only to financial targets, but also to indicators of innovation and team satisfaction. "I want to see Tech America becoming again the pioneering company it was, not just surviving," affirmed Frank before leaving. Within the company, the atmosphere had changed drastically. The room that was previously exclusively occupied by Michael was transformed into a collaborative space where the Aurora team worked. The CEO now occupied a smaller space, with glass walls that allowed constant visual contact with the team. The Different Perspectives program, initially received with skepticism by some directors, began to show surprising results. Ideas came from the most unexpected places. A security guard suggested a change in the access system that would save considerable time. A receptionist proposed an alteration in the client service flow that significantly improved the experience. And Mr. Johnson, the doorman, with his constant observation of who came and went, provided valuable insights about visitor patterns that helped the commercial team rethink their strategies. But the most significant transformation came from the implementation of a suggestion from Ms. Lucy herself. During one of the program meetings, she timidly raised her hand. "Mr. Reynolds, I don't understand much about computers or these technology things, but I see how you work until late, especially now with this new project. I thought maybe I could help by creating a more welcoming space." The idea was simple. Adapt a small room that served as a storage into a decompression environment where employees could rest, talk, or simply change scenery for a few minutes during the day. With the help of donations and reused items, the Pause Corner, as it was affectionately named, became a symbol of the new culture that was being born. Emma, in her visits with her mother, helped decorate the space with colorful drawings. One of them, framed on the main wall, showed a diverse group of people holding hands around what appeared to be a bright computer, the childish vision of Project Aurora. In the middle of the second month after the refusal of Orion Capital's proposal, Michael gathered the entire team for an important announcement. Aurora was ready for its first functional demonstration. In the improvised auditorium, Fiona and her team presented what they had managed to build in record time: an artificial intelligence system capable of analyzing gigantic masses of financial data and identifying patterns invisible to traditional methods. The potential for financial institutions, governments, and large corporations was immense. "The differential of Aurora," explained Fiona with contagious enthusiasm, "is that it not only identifies statistical correlations, but suggests causal narratives that can be tested. In other words, it doesn't just show what's happening, but suggests why and what might happen next." The demonstration impressed everyone, including Frank Thompson, who was present as a special guest. The applications were multiple, from early fraud detection to investment opportunities based on emerging trends. "This isn't just a product," commented Frank afterwards. "It's an entire platform with potential for many different verticals." Next day, the first installment of the investment promised by Horizon Ventures was released. It was less than the total value offered by Orion, but came without predatory ties and represented genuine confidence in the future of the company. Aurora was officially launched a month later, initially to a select group of clients who agreed to participate as beta testers. The feedback was almost immediately positive, with reports of significant discoveries made thanks to the platform. One of the largest banks in the country detected a sophisticated fraud in its system that had gone unnoticed for months. An insurance company identified a pattern of complaints that pointed to a structural problem in one of its products. An investment fund managed to anticipate a market movement that resulted in significant gains. The news spread quickly in the market. In a few months, Tech America, which had seemed doomed, had transformed into a case study on corporate reinvention. Partnership proposals began to arrive, some from companies that had previously cancelled contracts. On a particularly busy afternoon, while the commercial team celebrated the signing of 3 important new contracts, Michael received an unexpected call. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Richard Keller from Orion Capital Partners." Michael felt a chill as he recognized the voice. "Mr. Keller, how can I help you? It seems we underestimated the potential of your company. We're interested in resuming negotiations on more equitable terms." Michael couldn't avoid a smile. "I appreciate the interest, Mr. Keller, but Tech America is not for sale. Not now. Not in the near future." Upon hanging up, his gaze lingered. On a recently framed photograph on his desk, the complete company team, including cleaning, security, and maintenance staff, all together at the inauguration of the new space. In the center of the photo, Emma held a banner that read, "Tech America, where everyone has a voice." That afternoon, as he left his office for a coffee, Michael found Greg Foster analyzing the most recent financial results. "How are we doing?" The financial director smiled, something rare until a few months ago. "Exceeding projections by 23%. If we maintain this pace, we'll be completely in the black in 4 months, not 6 as we predicted. And what do you think about using part of this better-than-expected result to implement that profit-sharing program we discussed?" Greg hesitated for a moment, his conservative side reluctant. "Do you think it's prudent, considering we're still in recovery?" "I think it's essential," responded Michael with conviction. "It was the collective effort that brought us here. Everyone deserves to reap the fruits." That night, when the regular workday ended, Michael remained in the office. Not out of obligation or desperation, as in the previous months, but to finalize a personal project, a recognition board to be installed in the company's reception. When Ms. Lucy arrived with Emma for her shift, she found him finishing the installation. In the center of the board, prominently framed, was the Tech America Savior Certificate, with Emma's name written in golden letters. "Sir, isn't this an exaggeration?" asked Ms. Lucy, emotional. "Not at all. Without Emma, we probably would have signed with Orion, and Tech America as we know it would no longer exist." Emma observed the certificate with wide eyes, without completely understanding its meaning, but feeling the importance of the moment. "What does it mean to be a savior?" she asked. Michael crouched to be at the girl's height. "It means you did something very important without even knowing. You asked questions that adults were afraid to ask, and that changed everything." In the days that followed, the story of how a 7-year-old child had inadvertently saved the company spread, becoming part of the new corporate mythology of Tech America. More than a curious anecdote, it became a constant reminder about the importance of questioning, of listening to diverse voices, of maintaining childlike curiosity, even in the most serious environments. In the pause corner, now frequented daily by employees from all departments, a small plaque was installed with the phrase that became an internal mantra: "What if we asked like Emma would ask?" The company, which months before seemed doomed, now pulsed with new life. Aurora continued, evolving, incorporating suggestions from clients and discovering new applications. The team was growing again, but in a sustainable way, and the management model, previously traditional and hierarchical, now incorporated elements of active listening and broad participation that surprised the corporate market. Michael, observing all this from his office with glass walls, reflected on how far they had come in such a short time. The crisis that seemed like an end had revealed itself as a beginning catalyzed by the innocent question of a child who, without knowing, had asked the right question at the right time. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Fiona, excited. "Michael, we just received an invitation to present. Aurora at the largest financial technology conference in North America. And there's more. They want us to explain not only the technology, but also the organizational transformation that allowed its development." "Fantastic. And I want you to lead this presentation, Fiona. Nobody knows Aurora better than you." "Actually," hesitated the programmer, "we were thinking of something different. What if we did a dual presentation, you telling the story of the company's transformation and, well, we wanted to invite Emma to participate in a small part, to show how innovation can come from the most unexpected places." Michael smiled, imagining little Emma on the stage of an international technology conference, telling in her simple words how she had answered that fateful phone call. "I think it's a brilliant idea, but we'll have to convince Ms. Lucy first." Looking out the window at the city stretching out there, Michael felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Not just relief for having escaped collapse, but genuine enthusiasm for the future. A future built not by the easiest or fastest path, but by the most human path. 6 months had passed since the night Emma answered that fateful phone call. Tech America had not only survived the crisis, but emerged from it as a different, stronger, and above all, more human company. Project Aurora had transformed into a commercial success, with a waiting list of clients eager to implement the technology in their businesses. On that sunny spring morning, the main auditorium of the Lakefront Convention Center was packed for the opening session of Tech Summit America, the largest technology and innovation event in North America. In the front row, Michael nervously observed the stage while the organizers finalized the preparations. By his side, Ms. Lucy adjusted her new dress, the first she had bought in years, while Emma, now almost 8 years old, swung her legs, in the chair too big for her size, absorbed in an educational game on a state-of-the-art tablet, a gift from the development team of Tech America. "Is she nervous?" asked Michael. "Mies." Lucy smiled. "Curiously, no. She said it's just like telling a story to her school friends, just to grown-up people." Michael couldn't help but admire the naturalness with which Emma faced something that would leave many adults paralyzed with fear, talking to an audience of more than 1,000 people, including businessmen, investors, and technology experts. Perhaps it was that same naturalness that led her to ask those crucial questions to Richard Keller, without imagining the impact they would have. The presenter took the stage, announcing the opening talk. Innovation in unexpected places. In the Journey of Tech America and Project Aurora, Fiona was the first to ascend, impeccable in her navy blue blazer, representing the new generation of American technological leaders. With ease, she presented the technical aspects of Aurora, explaining how the platform was revolutionizing data analysis in various sectors. "But the true story we want to share today goes beyond technology," she said, after 15 minutes of presentation. "It's about how a company on the verge of collapse found its salvation in the most unlikely place possible. To tell this part, I call to the stage Michael Reynolds, CEO of Tech America." Michael climbed the steps, feeling the weight of all eyes. A year ago, he would be talking about market strategies, financial projections, and competitive advantages. Today, he had prepared a completely different speech. "Good morning, everyone. Many of you followed in the newspapers what they called the surprising turnaround of Tech America. Analysts attributed our rebirth to Project Aurora, the strategic sale of assets, or the partnership with Horizon Ventures. All these factors were important, no doubt. But the true catalyst for our transformation was something that no management manual teaches, something that no MBA prepares you to value. The right question, asked by the most unexpected person at the exact moment." For 20 minutes, Michael narrated the story of the company on the verge of bankruptcy, the apparently saving proposal from Orion Capital, and the night when a 7-year-old girl, daughter of the cleaning staff member, answered the phone and, with simple and direct questions, unmasked the true intentions of the foreign investor. That night changed not only the fate of Tech America, but our understanding of what it really means to innovate and lead," continued Michael. "We realized that we spent the entire day surrounded by people thinking the same way, asking the same questions, trapped in the same mental pitfalls. Emma showed us the value of a completely different perspective, free from the limitations that her experience often imposes." The audience listened in absolute silence. Executives accustomed to presentations full of graphs and corporate jargon seemed touched by a story that spoke directly to the human behind the professional. And now, to complete our story, I would like to call to the stage the true protagonist of this journey. Ladies and gentlemen, Emma Oliveira. A murmur of surprise ran through the auditorium when the small figure of Emma rose from the front row and, holding Fiona's hand, climbed onto the stage. Wearing a vibrant yellow dress and colorful sneakers, she seemed out of place in that corporate environment, and perhaps exactly for that reason, perfect to symbolize the message they wanted to convey. Michael crouched beside her, adjusting the microphone to her height. "Emma, can you tell everyone what happened that night when you answered the phone in my office?" With the simplicity characteristic of children, Emma narrated her version of the facts. How she was playing at being boss of the company, how the phone rang and she answered, how the man on the other end got angry with her questions, and how she later discovered she had done something important without even realizing it. "I just wanted to know why he was in such a hurry and what would happen to the people who worked there," she concluded, drawing smiles from the audience. "My mom always says it's important to care about people, not just things." Emma's spontaneity won over everyone. At the end of her brief participation, the auditorium erupted in enthusiastic applause, many of those present standing in an ovation that clearly caught the girl by surprise. Michael took the microphone back for the final considerations. What we learned from Emma goes far beyond a curious anecdote. We transformed this lesson into a pillar of our organizational culture. We created the Different Perspectives program, which gives voice to all hierarchical levels of the company. We redesigned our spaces to promote unlikely encounters between people from different departments, and we adopted the practice of Emma questioning, which consists of always asking, if a child looked at this problem, what question would they ask? The results, explained Michael, were surprising. Beyond the success of Aurora, Tech America had developed a culture of continuous innovation that attracted talents and partners from all over the country. The employee satisfaction index had soared and staff turnover had fallen drastically. But perhaps the most significant result is less tangible, he continued, rediscovering the purpose of the company. Beyond creating technology and generating profit, we understood that we are a community of people, each with their story, their unique perspective, their intrinsic value that goes far beyond the function they perform. As he concluded his presentation, Michael announced the launch of a social initiative from Tech America, the Clarity Program, an educational project that would bring technology and mentoring to public schools in the Chicago suburbs, encouraging children to develop solutions for problems in their own communities. Because we believe that the next great innovations will come from perspectives we are ignoring today, from questions we haven't yet learned to ask, from people who rarely have a voice in major decisions. The repercussion of the talk was immediate. On social media, the video of Emma telling her story went viral, generating debates about diversity of thought, inclusive innovation, and the wisdom of simple questions. Journalists surrounded Michael, Fiona, and Emma at the exit of the event, eager for more details of that unusual story. Days later, at the new headquarters of Tech America, a space completely redesigned to promote collaboration and well-being, Michael received a surprising call. One of the largest business universities in the country wanted to document the company's transformation as a case study. "We're particularly interested in the Different Perspectives program," explained the professor, responsible for the research. "There are few documented examples of companies that have successfully incorporated such diverse perspectives into their decision-making process." The news spread quickly through the company, generating a wave of collective pride. In the pause corner, now expanded and even more welcoming, Employees from all departments celebrated the recognition. For Ms. Lucy, the transformation went far beyond the work environment. With the company's new profit-sharing program and the salary adjustment implemented for support functions, she had finally managed to transfer Anthony to a first-rate rehabilitation clinic. The progress was slow but consistent, and Emma had earned a full scholarship at one of the best schools in the city as part of Tech America's commitment to education. "I never imagined my daughter would be in a place like this," she confided to Michael, emotional, after the first parent-teacher meeting at Emma's new school. "She deserves this and much more, Miss Lucy. Emma taught us a lesson that's worth more than any diploma." That night, while organizing his desk for the end of the week, Michael found a drawing that Emma had made for him, a colorful and imaginative representation of Tech America, with people of all sizes and colors working together around a large, bright computer. At the top, in irregular, childish letters, was written, "The company where everyone has a voice." The drawing made him reflect on the journey of the past few months. Tech America had narrowly escaped being dismantled and sold, in parts, like so many other American companies, that succumbed to predatory proposals disguised as salvation. More than surviving, it had reinvented itself, finding its own path, authentic, rooted in genuine values. His reflection was interrupted by a notification on his cell phone. Richard Keller from Orion Capital had been removed from his position after an internal investigation into unethical practices in acquisitions in North America. The article specifically mentioned the case of Tech America as one of the triggers for the scrutiny of the company's methods. Michael didn't feel satisfaction with the news, just the serenity of someone who knows they chose the right path, even when it seemed the most difficult. The following week, during an internal ceremony, Tech America formally inaugurated its new innovation center, the Emma Space, an environment where employees from all areas could dedicate part of their time to experimental projects, without pressure for immediate results. In the inauguration speech, Michael summarized the philosophy that now guided the company. Innovation is not just about brilliant answers, but about essential questions. And the most transformative questions frequently come from those who see the world with eyes free from prejudices and conditioning. As Emma showed us, sometimes we need the courage of a child to question what all the adults in the room are accepting without thinking. Project Aurora continued to evolve, now with applications that went far beyond the financial sector, encompassing health, education, and sustainability. The team was growing organically and sustainably, attracting talents not just for the salary or prestige, but for the unique culture they had built. Frank Thompson of Horizon Ventures commented in an interview with a business magazine, "Tech America is proof that America can create technology companies with their own DNA, without needing to copy imported models or succumb to predatory acquisitions. They found their way by looking inward, valuing their greatest asset, the diversity of perspectives of their people." Emma, now an unlikely celebrity in the corporate world, continued to be just a curious and talkative child. She visited the iHire company regularly, always received with affection by everyone. For her, the impact of her actions was still something abstract, but she was beginning to understand that she had done something important by questioning what she didn't understand instead of pretending to understand or simply keeping quiet. In one of these visits, while accompanying her mother in her new position as coordinator of the Different Perspectives program, Ms. Lucy had been promoted, bringing her sensitivity and knowledge of the company to a formal leadership function. Emma stopped in front of the board with her Tech America Savior certificate in the reception. "Mom, was what I did really that important?" Ms. Lucy crouched beside her, adjusting a lock of hair that fell over her daughter's face. "It was, my child. You did something that many adults are afraid to do. You asked what you didn't understand, questioned what seemed wrong, didn't accept vague answers when you felt there was something more." Emma reflected for a moment, with that seriousness that sometimes appeared on her childish face. "So you don't need to be big or important to make a difference?" "No, Emma. Sometimes the most important voice is precisely the one that nobody expects to hear." As the two walked down the corridor of the company that had been transformed because of a simple childish question, outside Chicago continued its frenetic rhythm. But inside Tech America, something fundamental had changed forever. The understanding that true innovation doesn't just come from advanced technologies or brilliant strategies, but from the courage to question, the wisdom to listen, and the humility to learn from the most unexpected voices. And in each new project, in each strategic meeting, in each moment of decision, a silent question hung in the air, like a mantra that had become part of the company's DNA. What would Emma ask?